What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Today, I thought it would be fun to do like a little checkup, a little private practice checkup to see how is your practice doing? How are you feeling about it? You can kind of think of this episode like your annual checkup with your primary care physician. Like maybe you're not feeling particularly sick or anything like that, but you're just checking in. How's everything going? Running a private practice is kind of a whole beast of a thing. Whether you're running a solo private practice or if you're running a group practice, then there's even more hats that you have to wear. You are employer and employee, and by the way, you're also a clinician, implementing therapeutic techniques with your clients. So it's helpful to have some sort of framework for checking in, like how are all of these different arenas going? Like business, clinical, employee well-being. I mean, yourself when I'm talking about employee, or if you're a group practice owner, like how are your employees doing as well? Now, I won't lie, because we wear so many hats, there are a lot of variables that I think are worth checking in on. And so I am going to run through quite a few steps. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by all of the things that we're going to check in on. I'm going to invite you at the end to just pick one area that is hitting a little snag, needs a little work, could do with a little growth out of all of the questions that you asked, and just focus on one change at a time. This is going to be a holistic approach to doing a little checkup on your practice. Like we're going to try to touch on all the things. Let's dive into it. The very first step, I think, before we do a checkup on our practice is to ask ourselves what our goals were. I mean, it makes sense, right? If we're checking in on how things are going, we have to know like what metric we're going off of. Having those goals in mind gives us a sort of baseline metric for where to check, like, am I reaching those goals? Am I, not quite reaching those goals? Or am I exceeding those goals? And goals could be anything. It doesn't have to just be like how many clients you're seeing or how much money you're making, though those may be relevant goals for you as well. But I don't know, maybe you had goals of decreasing your levels of burnout, or maybe you had a goal of enhancing your clinical skills in a particular specialty that you're interested in leaning into. Just think of whatever goals you might have been working on and keep that in mind as we run through the rest of these checklist items. Okay, that naturally leads us to the next step of this checkup, which is to choose a specific chunk of time that you're going to look at for the rest of the questions we're going to ask in this checkup. Pick a longer chunk of time than just a week or two. I'd say a minimum of a month. A quarter is great, and I also think it's a great idea to do a checkup like this once a year at a minimum. The next checkup item, I think for a lot of folks, is going to be one of the hardest ones to look at, one of the hardest ones to keep on top of. Brace yourself. I think it'll get easier from after this step if this feels a little challenging. But the next step is to check on all of your bookkeeping items. And when I say bookkeeping, I don't just mean like, did you keep on top of your finances, though it certainly includes that, but it could include other things like, did you stay on top of all of your notes and your billing? And yes, keeping track of your bookkeeping, meaning, how much money you had coming in and going out. Did you pay all of your expenses on time? Did you return all your client calls and emails? How long did it take you to get back to potential and existing clients when they reached out? And did you complete your quarterly tax payments and file your yearly taxes if that, fits within the window that you're looking at? See if there's any patterns to that. Is it a specific area that you get hung up on and everything else is running pretty smoothly? Or is it kind of all administrative tasks with kind of deadlines to keep up on that you're struggling with? For now, just make note. We're not making any changes yet. After that, check in on your numbers. All the numbers that come with both running a business and that are also specific to running a private therapy practice. What was my revenue during this chunk of time I'm looking at? What were my expenses? How many clients did I average per week? How many potential clients reached out? How many intakes did I have? How many no-shows? How many instances of no pay? This is whether your client is self-pay or maybe insurance didn't cover for whatever reason. And depending on your practice, different variables, there might be other numbers that are worth checking in on, but those are going to be some common ones that apply to most people. Next, I would suggest doing a little checkup on your marketing strategy, which is kind of a little bit an extension of your numbers, but it's important to zoom in on because if our marketing strategy isn't working, then we don't have new clients coming. I'm not going to do a deep dive on evaluating your marketing strategy here because that could be its own episode. I think I have an episode actually related to that, so if I can find it, I'll link to it in the description. But focus on what are my marketing strategies available And am I still visible and effective in those spaces? If your marketing strategy is networking and word of mouth, you're gonna have a very different set of variables to evaluate than if your marketing strategy is SEO, for example. So just consider, like, how would potential clients be able to even find you in the first place, and how are those methods working for you? The next item on this list is a clinical checkup. So here's some questions to kind of get your juices flowing about how your practice is doing clinically. You can ask things like, are my clients progressing towards their goals? Are there any clients who seem stagnant in our work? Did I seek consultation or supervision support when I hit clinical snags? Is there anyone I worked with that I didn't feel fully equipped to support? Are there clinical tools or trainings I'd like to look into to bolster my care? And did I try anything new or less familiar to me clinically? And how did that go? Of course, there could be more questions you could ask in this clinical realm, especially, depending on what your practice focuses on. But check in. And next, I think it's so important to do a well-being checkup. Like, how are you doing? It would be really easy to just see how our clients are doing, but it's also really important to check on the well-being of our employees, which, if you're running a group practice, of course, check on the well-being of your employees for sure. But also, if you're a solo practice, you need to check on the well-being of yourself as your own employee. So here's some questions you can ask about your own well-being in the context of your private practice. How fulfilling was the work? How tiring was it? Was there anything about my work that negatively impacted my personal life? Were there any clients that were particularly challenging to work with? Were there times I stretched my boundaries, such as taking on more clients than I intended, or saw clients outside of my usual work hours, or said yes to clients I know are a strain for me to work with, etc., etc. So we're kind of just checking in on, like, how is this work affecting me overall? Is any of it trickling down into the rest of my life? And the last piece I have to check in on this list is to do an emotional checkup. Now, obviously our emotions and our well-being, they kind of have like a blurry line between the two, but there's some questions in this category that I think would be helpful to check in on. We might like to ask questions such as, what were the most enjoyable parts of my work? Was there anything about my work that was emotionally taxing? Did I check in with supports when I came upon challenges? And of course, anything else that you might be observing about your emotional health in connection to your private practice are worth checking in on. And certainly, if you're flagging any signs of potential for burnout, definitely make note of that. And the last step in my checkup simply circles back to something I emphasized at the beginning of this episode, and that's to pick one thing to focus on for the next month or the next quarter. There's different ways you can go about picking one thing, so I don't have like a here's how to pick that one thing. Some of you might be able to just go back and look through how you responded to this list and sort of see something almost kind of like standing out at you. Or if you're feeling like, I don't know, there's like 10,000 things that came up and where do I even start? If I just pick one thing, is it even gonna make a difference? I've been there. I've been there. Just run through the list and see if there's anything that feels like it would have the biggest positive impact on you or your practice if you focused on that one item. Have that be the one thing you focus on in the next chunk of time, at least a month and maybe a quarter, before you add on another item that you're going to work on next. I definitely made up this list myself based on my own like frameworks and biases and like what kind of checklist seems most helpful to me in my private practice. And I realized like it may not fit for everyone in the same way too. So let this be one of those like take the parts that are helpful for you and leave behind the things you don't want type of things. Let it maybe just be a little reminder that if you don't have any sort of like checkpoints built into your schedule, it might be a good thing to start doing. Well, I hope this episode was helpful to you, whether you haven't even started private practice yet, you just got started, or you've been doing this for a really long time. If I missed anything that you would include on your checkup, by all means, feel free to leave a comment below. I do not claim that this is like the ultimate end all be all checkup for all people. So would love to hear your feedback if I missed anything. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring today's video. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing. They have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform included for free for all users and so much more. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.